So welcome back to my channel. This is Gamer Dom and time for another Rambles of a Fool. So a day later, usually put this out on a Friday, but I delayed it for a day because frankly there wasn't an awful lot to talk about. Sod's law is whenever I put it out on the Friday and there hasn't been much to talk about, then suddenly on the Saturday there's loads, or the Friday itself and the Saturday there's loads and loads of good stuff that comes out of the woodwork. So still not a huge amount to talk about, but hopefully this is entertaining. Going to look at nerfing of one of the Russian heavy tanks. Yeah, I know, my goodness me, they're going to nerf a Russian tank. Going to have a little bit of the latest Fosh rant and whether there's some merit in that. Some of the new missions and opportunities to win a famous character for your Italian tanks. And also going to have a look at just a brief look at spotting. I know this is a contentious and often talked about issue in the world of tanks, and whether or not that system is completely broken. Anyway, without further ado, let's get cracking. So if the Object 430 version 2, the Russian tier 9 medium tank is your thing, you might want to look away now. They are talking about, was an ugly bug, they are talking about amending that tier 9 medium tank so it fits better within its tech tree, particularly with the K91 already undergoing super tests at the moment. You've seen on the previous Rambles I've talked about this coming into one of the future patches for our missing tier 9 medium tank on that particular tech tree. Let's just see where the 430 sits, just to get ourselves sorted on that point of view. So the 430 version 2 comes in here now at tier 9, moved back from tier 10s a couple of patches ago now, I think. It's sort of a natural succession along this line of the tier 7 A44, the Object 416, then the 430 version 2, and then the new upcoming tier 10 all have a rear mounted turret and some similarities. So the reason for changing the Object is that both the 416 and the A44 are snipey type mediums. They don't have much armor. It appears the new tier 10 also won't have any armor, so it kind of sits a little bit out of place, the Object 430 version 2 as it stands in the game currently, with lots of armor and a big derpy gun. So they're looking to change that. So here's the stats for the 430 version 2 that is currently going through super test at the moment, and as I say, the basic idea behind this is that it fits better within the Object 416 and then the T91 when that comes into the game, in terms of the same sort of style of play. This is something we've been hearing a lot from wargaming around amending tanks, removing tanks if they don't fit within that sort of logical evolution of the vehicle, so that you get the same sort of play style experience across all the different vehicles in that tech tree, or in that line of the tech tree. So this is obviously super test stats, so it could still change, but basically the top line here is that the gun handling is going to be incredibly, well, not incredibly, it's going to be considerably enhanced at the expense of hit points and armor. So this thing at the moment is very much a brawly medium, but it's going to be much more of a sniping medium, which is very much like the tier 10 it will be, and the current tier 8 is. So what does that mean? Well, you're going to be seeing a DPM increase of well, it's currently about 2,500, yeah, somewhere around that. We're now getting up to 2,669. Penetration, all that sort of thing stays the same, but accuracy gets better. Where's accuracy? Yeah, here we go, accuracy. It's currently about 0.36, it's going to be 0.336 according to the super test at the moment. Aim time, likewise, good improvement there. It's currently 2.78, goes down to 1.92. So very good there. Your rate of fire has gone up by half a round a minute basically, by reducing the reload time down from 7.67 to 7.192. So that's all the good news. In terms of the not so good news, the total tank health has dropped. It's currently 1700, so it's they're looking at dropping it to 1600, so a full 100 loss in health. And that's mainly the armor. So the hull armor particularly badly nerfed. 120 currently, which is pretty reasonable actually, for given its very low silhouette and quite well angled. It's now 80. That's what they're testing anyway, so that's a big change. That's a big change. Even the side armor down to 60 from where it is at the moment, currently at 80. And it doesn't stop there. The turret is the same. Where's the turret? There we go. Turret frontal. There you go. 180. Currently, it's about 248. So again, a big drop off there. Side armor of the turret is currently 185. This is 120. So very, very significant armor drop off, and losing some health as well. Turns this vehicle's playstyle around completely from being one of a brawler to one of a sniper. But that fits much more with the other tanks in this tech tree, so that's why they're looking to do it. So remembering, none of these changes are final. This is all currently being worked on and being tested on the super test server at the moment. So watch this space, see whether or not we do actually get these changes on the lines. My guess is they will, because as I said before, they are so keen to ensure that there is similarities and sort of cross-training ability when you move up through the same tech tree. There's no good being from a snipey medium tank to a brawly medium tank to then back to a snipey medium tank on this tech tree. They'll want to keep it more standard, and hence why they're looking at the 430 version 2 for some changes. But let me know in the chat down below whether you're happy or not, or just don't really care. I'm never quite sure how many people are playing tier 9 randoms at the moment, but you know, it's good to know. And who knows, by the time this comes out of super test, they might have amended a few, tweaked a few bits and bobs, but certainly that's what they're looking at. There's also improvements, sorry, I've got to say, improvements on firing on the move and that sort of thing. So, you know, I think all in all, it's focusing on the gun, less on the brawl ability. That seems to be the way they're looking at it. Anybody fancy a Buffon? Buffon for anybody? Gigi Buffon is available at the moment in the game. This is another one of these celebrity stroke famous people stroke B-level celebrity tie-ups that Wargaming do from time to time. We've had Sabaton doing the Swedish Centurion tank thing. We've had Dolph Lundgren, haven't we, also doing Swedish tanks. We've had Steven Seagal doing World of Warships, but I shouldn't have mentioned him. Don't mention Steven, wipe that one out. I think I mentioned it. I think I got away with it, but it's okay. And then we have Gigi Buffon, now representing the Italian tech tree launch. So who is he? Well, he is one of the all-time great goalkeepers in football. That's football, American people, not soccer. This is football guy. He was Italian captain, I believe, an international one of the leading all-time caps, I think, in football. Played for his country more than pretty much anybody else. Very good goalkeeper, even I remember him, and I'm not much of a football fan these days. So he is apparently the ambassador for the Italian tanks, and what that means is between the 11th of May and June the 1st, you can win him. As a crew member, as a commander, of course. He couldn't be anything else. I think he did captain Italy as well. So anyway, he's a commander in a tank. And what do you need to do to get him? Well, it seems just play one game seems to be the way it is. You just play one game in any tank. There you go. Oh, it has to be an Italian. Has to be with the tier 8 P44 Pantera, or the tier 9 or the tier 10, or indeed if you've got the Progetto, you can play one game. That's all you need. Win and loss, you get him into your garage. So it's a bit of a bummer if you haven't splashed the cash and you haven't ground your way up to the tier 8, 9 or 10, but I suppose you've got another couple of weeks to do this. And is he worth him? Well, yeah, I think he is. He's apart from having a celebrity on your lineup, yawn, he is also a commander for your Italian tanks. He is has 6 cents, I believe, and he's 100% already. So yeah, it's worth it. The only stupid thing, and the one I disagree entirely with, is that you have to play it in the tier 8, tier 9 or tier 10, and also with the either the tier 8 premium, but he comes as a commander for the Italian tier 1, which is kind of stupid really. Anyway, get him while he's hot, as they say. Is he hot? I don't know. Don't have a thing for Italian footballers. Yes, so I can confirm indeed, just to win a game, or to play a game, don't even have to win it, you get a Buffon of your own to boof up. And Buffon, he is a, let's go and find him, he is, there we go, an Italian commander for the Fiat 3000. He comes with 6 cents already in place, and I guess this is not an extra skill, so what should we give him just for the sake of brother in arms? Let's do that. There we go. Yep, 0 brothers in arms. So yeah, you get your own Buffon to Buffo. You just have to play one game and in an Italian tank, I think, and you get him. There you go, Bob's your auntie. Didn't even have to win. So indeed, North America is going Italian in a big style. So to celebrate the arrival of the Italian tech tree, there's a number of missions available to be played out, which is kind of fun, as well as all the winning Buffon between the 3rd of May and the 31st of May. So basically the entire month of May, number of missions where you can earn extra credit boosters, garage slots, more personal reserves, premium time even. What's that? 30% XP bonus, and the final one ×2 crew experience. But you have to be playing the Italian tanks to get them. That seems to be the one limitation here. But nice to see that, to encourage people to play the Italian tech tree. I think that's always a good thing to do, and get people excited about the new tech tree. Looks like it can be in any grand battles, randoms, 7v7 team games, skirmishes and strongholds. Pretty much the whole works. So nice to see. I haven't seen anything similar in Europe, but we never get such good missions as North America. Get the violins out, Dom. Oh, it's so hard done by. Okay, so Sir Fosh is up to it again. So Sir Fosh, if you don't know who he is one of the biggest streamers. Used to be a community contributor for Wargaming before he was fired from that role for his criticism of basically Wargaming's. It was the Chrysler, I think, was the thing that broke the camel's back, if I remember rightly. The Chrysler Grand Final tank. He had a complete and utter meltdown on it. Going on about Wargaming's pay-to-win kind of mentality, how you know, anybody can basically you had to use gold, blah blah blah. Yeah, anyway, I'm going over all the old arguments, but it really created a shitstorm, a lot of bad feeling. Wargaming had to overreacted completely on it, because, you know, Sir Fosh, if you watch his playstyle, I'm not going to play his video because he's quite abusive. He has a very direct and forthright manner, shall we say. Anyway, his latest rant is on the Object 268 version 4, the tier 10 Russian tank destroyer, Now, you know, I agree with his sentiment. This tank is overpowered and should have never have come into the game in the standard, in the format it is. It has a combination of absolutely awesome speed, amazing frontal armor, and an extremely good gun. The only downside of it that I can see is it's a slow reload on it. And everybody knew it. Well, in fact, funny enough, and I'm not going to bang my own drum, is that the right expression, on this, but I played this tank on the test server, and you can see it. I did a video about it because I thought it was just the most awesome TD I had ever played with. Far, far too good. At the same time, I was watching other people reviewing it on the test server, and they were saying how it was okay, it wasn't that great, it was a bit too, gun wasn't very good, blah blah blah. And I thought, is this the same tank I'm using? Because I thought it was absolutely awesome. And sure enough, it came onto the real server, and it is a complete brute. I mean, every time you see one of these things, it's hard to take down. And so that, I agree with Safosh. It should never have come into the game. It should have been properly play tested. Where he went into a bit of a meltdown was basically based around the fact that it allowed poorer players to be good, which I think is it's one of the things I object to some of the anti-Japanese heavy tank form feeling around there from these super unicorn players, really good players who just moan because it allows poorer players like me to play better and stand up against them. Because when you're in something like Type 5 Heavy or this thing, the Object 268 version 4, you're in such a good vehicle that it kind of balances out the standard of play level. I could never hope to be as good as Safosh. In fact, I have been killed by Safosh firing flipping gold at me. But anyway, that's another story. But I think his objection was that it allowed anybody to be good at the game. And I think that's just a completely unnecessary kind of approach, and shows really good players, and him in particular, in a very bad light. The tank is OP, doesn't matter who is driving it. The fact it allows worse players to sort of perform at a reasonable level is actually an advantage, I would suggest, to the tank. At the end of the day, the whole point of this game is you do not want players who are only the super unicums and the super players to be dominating the top tiers. That is not a good situation to have. And part of the challenge with the game generally, in my mind at least, is that we need to find a way of encouraging newer players to improve, get better, and play at the top tiers. Otherwise the game dies, right? Otherwise it dies. If people just play, enjoy themselves through 4, 5, 6, 7, then they get on to 8 and they get solid tier 10 matchmaking, but they push through and they fight their way through 9s and into 10s, and then they go out on 10s and they are completely outclassed, killed by everything who's all firing gold at them, and they just give up and go home, because that's supposed to be the pinnacle of the game, to get to tier 10. And a factor tank allows them to be competitive at that level. I think it's actually quite a good thing. However, the tank is unbalanced. It is overpowered. Now, he has a wonderful conspiracy theory as well, and I urge you to go and have a look at his videos, because it's an interesting watch, but make sure you have the volume turned down if you're listening at work. He makes a sort of conspiracy theory point, which I can see the logic of, in that every time a tank like this comes into the game and is overpowered, everybody rushes, well, not everybody, lots of players rush to convert their free XP and get through the tiers as quickly as possible to get the new in thing. And then another new in thing comes in, or maybe there's a slight modification to the supposedly OP top tank that everybody wants, and then the next one comes in and the same thing happens. And of course, every time you convert free XP, it costs you gold, and gold is money, and money is money to allow the Wargaming to build their space station or whatever they're going to be doing. I can see there's a certain degree of logic there. As a marketing person like myself, evil beasts that we are, I can see that that's actually a really good strategy. Personally, I suspect that it's not quite as clear-cut as that. I don't think Wargaming think that logically. I think there is a certain innate bias, there you go, I said it, for Russian vehicles, because they are a Russian, well, they're not actually Russian, but they're based out in the former Soviet republics, and their largest player base is Russian. So I think there is an innate bias towards Russian vehicles anyway. But I do think they just don't seem to have, I don't know what the super testers do, I don't know what the play testers do, because to me, it's fairly obvious. I'm just an average Joe player, and if I can perform really, really well in an Object 268 version 4 on the test server, everybody's firing gold at you, then I'm pretty sure that's going to be a good tank, right? And it's not down to my skill level, because I'm okay, but I'm not that skilled. It doesn't take much surely to test that out. Now, interestingly, every time anyone moans about the Object 268, Wargaming insists that actually they're continuing to monitor it, and actually it's fairly balanced. There's good and bads, and actually it was even rumoured in one of the Q&As I saw that they might even have to buff it a bit. I mean, you might as well give up at tier 10 if that's the case, because nobody will be driving anything but this. But pretty much there'll be another one along fairly soon, I'm sure, that's deemed to be OP and better than this thing. But at the moment, the Object 268 version 4 is the bête noire, is the #1, and it's got the ire of Sir Foch publicly. So go and have a listen to his video, watch his video, if you fancy it. He makes some good points. I think he makes a little not so good points around the better players scenario, but it's his right, his video, he knows what he's doing, he's a good player. Anyway, let me know what you think. Do you dread it when you see the Object 268 version 4 on the enemy teams? So stop press, it appears that Wargaming have been listening, and they are super testing a nerfed version of the Object 268 version 4. Now, before you get too excited, they're not nerfing it that much, but I have to say this is a promising start. So these are obviously super test stats, so there's no guarantee these will actually come in, but talking about reducing its power ratio by 150, so that will help. It won't be quite as quick off the blocks as previously, and I think that means there's a 2 kph speed difference, which is nothing really. It loses a bit of aim time, so from 2 to 2.3, which is welcome, because with the slow reload and slower aim time, that will basically help it being a little bit less accurate and not quite so dominating. Also, dispersion during movement and rotation of the turret, well, it doesn't have a turret, but you know what I mean, will increase from 0.115 to 0.144, so again, welcome, I think. Increased dispersion during movement at maximum speed from 6.33 to 7.91, and changes in the armor. Now this is good, really good, finally putting some proper weak spots on this thing. So these, I think they're viewfinders, aren't they? I think go from 252 to 232, which is a much more realistic penetration potential. This hatch here, pretty tiny target, but this hatch here also 252 to 232, and the lower plate is very pennable now. 236 originally, now 201, which is great. So all good stuff, I think, all good. Yeah, engine power down by 150, so overall speed drops by 2. Doesn't lose an awful lot of acceleration, I don't think, with that, but at least it loses something. So there you go, hot off the press. Wargaming did actually nerf it, or are looking to nerf it. We'll see whether this actually comes into fruition. I hope so. It needs to be nerfed. This tank is just far too powerful as it stands. So I'm still planning to do a video on this, but I never seem to be online when well, the last few days I haven't been online when I've been ready to record, and there is a time limit to this game feature running. So I just wanted to shout out Frontlines. It came in a week after the last patch came into the game, And I have to say, personally, I think it's one of the best game modes Wargaming have put into the game. I think it's absolutely superb. And I would urge people who play tier 8 tanks and are running out of patience coming up against 9s and 10s all the time to go and give it a go. So what is Frontline? It is a 30v30 game on a 9 km squared map, so a huge map. It's set up into 3 separate sections. Each section at the start of the game has 10 tanks attacking, 10 tanks defending, and the idea of the game basically is the attacker has to capture 2 of the different regions in front of it. So there's 6 of those, 2 across 3, so 6 different regions, which extends the clock and allows the game to continue to then go on and destroy 3 of 5 gun turrets, like coastal gun turrets, that kind of thing, at the very last cycle. And so there's a time limit to do it. You can only destroy these turrets from the side or the rear. You can't do it from the front. I believe there's some weak spots on it, but basically you need to get around the side and the rear. The whole idea is the defender tries to stop them do it, and there's all sorts of nuances around the game in terms of airstrikes you can get on your tanks. You can have smoke screens, which is very cool, and it's played at tier 8. Now this used to be played at tier 10, was very exclusive. Not many people bothered with it, I don't think, beyond the very good players. But at tier 8, it's fantastic. And I'll tell you why it's fantastic. It's because you play against other tier 8s. So, you know, when you click the button in random battles on the tier 8 game, chances are you're going to get a 9 or a 10 tier every time you play. Of course, on Frontlines, you only ever play tier 8s. So you're up against your same tier vehicles. The other thing with it is that you get to reload into the game. So if you get destroyed, after a certain period of time, there's a cooldown period effectively. So if you die almost immediately, you're going to have to wait a bit, but you get to bring in another tier 8 tank. And I can't remember, I think it's 3 or 4 times you can recharge and bring in your tier 8. Not immediately, there's a bit of a cooldown period, and you can then choose which front you want to go to. So you can actually change from the front you were initially placed in to going somewhere else. And it's eligible if you don't have a tier 8. You'll have noticed in the garage, for those observant of you, there are 2 new tier 8 tanks in your garage, a T-32 American heavy tank and a T-44 Russian medium tank, which have the designate of FL at the end of them, and they are frontline rental tanks, and they are for you to use if you haven't already got a tier 8, or if you want to use you don't want to use your own tier 8, you can use the frontline tanks in this game mode. Now, as I understand it, those will disappear after this test period is through. So I believe it's the 3rd of June. You will lose those tanks. Now, any equipment, any shells, anything else that's on board will go into your depot, so you keep them. And I believe also the crew members, if you're using those, will also stay in your barracks. So you've got a couple of 100% crews there, which if you haven't already got them, could be useful. So yeah, Frontline game mode, thoroughly recommend it. I will hopefully do a video of it. I've had some absolutely stonking games. The one thing to warn you about this game mode is that so there's a couple of things to warn you, but to make you aware of. There is a time schedule for Frontline to run. So Monday to Friday, it's 3 o'clock till 10 o'clock. Central European time. Is it UTC? That's European Central, yeah, whatever. UTC, you know, you guys are clever, you know what that means. And then the weekend it's slightly earlier in the day, so 1 o'clock through to midnight UTC, that you can play it in. The other thing is the games last a long time. You're talking half an hour for a game, so bear that in mind if you're sitting down to have a game. It could take a while. It could take a while. Now the flip side of that is that you make a lot of credits out of it, even when you lose. And I think I've lost more than I've won. I have to say, personally, I think the defender has a better chance of winning. The attackers have to be much more organised, and it's random battles, and you can't platoon in this. Although I've seen people doing countdowns to get in on the same team, which is a good idea. but you know, it's tough. I think it's tougher as the attacker. There's a couple of the capture points you have to get as an attacker. There's one in particular, I forget which one it is now. I think it's C, which I think is, or is no B, I think it is. It's almost impossible for the defender to stop you. But then the one beyond that is very, very hard for the attacker to get. And I personally find the attacker has more of a tougher job taking and breaking their way through. So when I'm defending, I think I've won more than I've won when I've been attacking, put it that way. But I've had some monster games. I did 12,000 damage in one. And you can generate a huge amount of credits. Now it's a little bit imbalanced because you think, oh my goodness, I've made 150,000 credits. But of course, you could have probably played 2, maybe 3 random games in the same time you played that one game. And because of the recycling, you can't drop out. So you don't drop out and go back to the garage and start another one. You stay in there and then you wait for your next tank to be set up. Some tips from me on this: you can set up these various booster things, so you need to go in and set up which tanks have airstrikes. There's recon options, there's smoke screens, there's inspire to help you, almost works the opposite of stun on your crew and crews around you. There's the one that helps you capture the cap point quicker. So there's various of these things, and you need to set them up on your tanks that you're likely to use, and you also need to make sure that the tanks you're likely to want to use are obviously crewed up and shelled up and have any mods and anything else you want on them. I think also what's been very refreshing for me of this game mode is people aren't spamming gold. There's not as much gold being flung around for some reason, and I'd say I've really enjoyed it. It's very uncertain, it's very complicated, it's quite difficult. It's more realistic as a game, because as realistic as a battle, because you can be, you know, focusing on where you're attacking, and next thing you know, you get attacked from the flank by, you know, some tanks or light tanks that you had previously didn't know were coming that way. And I think the traditional World of Tank games are so formulaic, right? Heavy tanks go here, medium tanks go here, watch out for them breaking through this gap here. On these big maps, there's so many variables, so many different places they can come from, that you can get yourself into a lovely position. You're having a wonderful game. Next thing you know, someone pops up behind you that you hadn't expected. And it's really fun. So I would urge people to go and have a go at it. Personally, I think it's one of the best features they've brought into the game. Now it is tier 8. I think at tier 10 it was just, yeah, it was okay. But tier 8, it's so much fun. And there are so many people playing it. That also is fun, because you don't just get the super unicorn players playing it. Yeah, just give it a go. One negative again is that it can be a bit laggy, so just be aware of that. But love to know your thoughts on Frontline. Do you enjoy it as much as I do? I'm slightly addicted, and my only problem is in the weekdays I don't tend to get on till quite late, so maybe I get 1, maybe 2 games if I'm lucky before it shuts down. But I'm looking forward to doing more at the weekend, so let me know what you think. So I know in some of the chats we've been having on some of my videos, lots of comments around spotting mechanics and how truly fucked they are, pardon my French. And I'll show you this game, a completely unremarkable game on Glacier here. Now let me just stop this there. Right, that tortoise up there in the distance has been spotted all the time I'm approaching. He's just taken down the Lurv, who was directly in front of him, and the Brigetto is within line of sight. I am getting up for, well, 400 plus meters away from him. There's even a T-95 that's closer than me. So I get set up here on this hill. This is Glacier. Look, you can tell that he's been spotted by the Progetto because the Progetto just hit him. He disappears momentarily, then reappears. Progetto is still there within spotting range of each other. They're firing at each other. He's hit him. I get the assistance for that. How can that be? He's taken another hit. I get the assistance for that. Another hit, I get this. So all that assistance, and I was 400 meters plus away, plus there was a Brigetto, and before that a Love, all closer. The T95 is closer than I am. I don't get it. Spotting mechanics are seriously screwed, and we all know they are, because I mean the number of times I've been in a game where I've been scouting ahead and I finish up at the end of the, and my spotting meter on my mod is giving me nothing, and yet I am the one spotting them. They're clicking up because I've seen them, and you can see you spotted them because it says spotted. It's a bit of a giveaway, and yet you don't get any assistance for it. And then other games you play, you're somewhere behind everybody else like this, and you get all the spotting assistance. So I got pretty much that entire tortoise's spotting damage there, which took this from being a completely unremarkable game to a slightly unremarkable game. Completely unjustifiably. I didn't do it. I didn't justify it. That Brigetto at the very least should have got all that spotting damage. He was spotting for himself. Possibly the Love should have had it, because he was virtually nose to tail with that tortoise and paid for it. So it just doesn't make sense. And I know there was a moment where he blinked out, and that in itself is weird. Why did he blink out? He must have been very close to that Brigetto, because immediately after he reappeared they were firing each other again, so they must have been able to see each other. So it just doesn't make sense, and Wargaming won't address this at all. I've seen lots of comments. People were saying that some of the video producers like Klaus, very outspoken Klaus, has been commenting on it, doing videos on it, and I just add my piece to the pie. You know, it just so happened I was playing this game, and it happens as it happened, as you saw, and I thought, how can that be? How can that be? That really just illustrates to me perfectly the problem. I'm finding the same with Camo. Sitting in a bush, behind another bush, behind another bush, and still being spotted, and how the spotting mechanics are not supposed to allow that to happen. You're supposed to be able to fire through a bush if you have some distance behind you. You know, if it's if when you look at come out of when you look through spotting sniper view and it's all cloudy and blocked, then you should be able to fire through it. It shouldn't be seen unless they're seeing round you in some way. But the number of games I've been playing where there is no way on God's earth you should have been spotted, but you were, even not firing. And then other games where you are, you know, 400 plus meters away from the enemy, and you're getting assistance when there's other tanks far closer who must have been spotting. And I know in games I've been spotting tanks and yet not being given the credits for it. So something seriously is wrong with spotting mechanics, and I just wish Wargaming would deal with it. But let me know, am I smoking the pipe of fantasy there? Is it, or have you encountered that yourselves? I'd love to know. I don't think I'm alone. I'm fairly certain I'm not alone. Well, I know I'm not alone because I've seen other people commenting on it on other videos and other places, but it seems to be a real problem, and Wargaming needs to get a grips with it. Soapbox put away. For a moment anyway. Warning! This is an EU server warning. Yeah, I know. Anyway, yeah, watch out guys. This weekend, ×5 for first victory of the day in any tank. And I don't know what it is about ×5s or even ×3 weekends, but it brings out all the tire kickers, the window lickers, the god-awful teammates that we all dread. More come out on weekends where it's a ×5 than any other time, so just be careful out there guys, just be really careful. It is this weekend. No idea whether this is on other servers, apologies, I don't know, I couldn't find anything about it, but when I was recording this it was still early in the North American server, so it's entirely possible that you're going to be suffering the same fate as we are, and Southeast Asia likewise. But ×5 this weekend, so from the 12th, 13th and 14th on the EU server. There's also 50% off consumables and equipment, which is very welcome. And if you're looking to buy a tier 8, 9 or 10 vehicle, now might be the time, because they are 15% off That's only the regular vehicles. So this is Military Parade Special apparently this weekend, so watch out. Headbutters, headbangers, tyre kickers and window lickers and keyboard headboard smashers will all be out this weekend, more than any other, with the ×5. Enjoy! So I hope you found this interesting and useful. If you did, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Lots and lots of new subscribers, so welcome one and all. In the meantime, let me know what you think. Feedback is always great. I'd like to always have a fairly frank and fulsome discussion about some of the points I've raised in this Rambles. That's the whole point of the thing, to discuss. I'm just giving my opinion as a long-standing player. It's what I'm thinking about things I'm hearing and seeing. So, but I want to get your feedback. Am I on the mark, or am I way off the beaten track on these things? Let me know down below. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. As I say, if you did, make sure you click that like button. If you didn't, click the don't like button. I don't mind. It's feedback is good. Anyway, in the meantime, enjoy your games, have fun, try not to take it too seriously, and I'll see you again soon. This is Gamer Dom